Of all the things I've seen on the battlefields of the frontier, the pilot is the true dominant force.
Hello? Can anyone tell me why you've given me an inflatable hammer as a weapon?
Fast and agile. Graceful, yet devastating.
It's not very efficient in combat. I blew it up without taking my helmet off. You think about that for a minute.
Perceptive, resourceful, and relentless. A pilot sees the world differently.
All I'm gonna say is rectile discharge.
Pilots fight differently. Experienced in deception and maneuver, even overwhelming odds shift in their favor.
It's really hot in here. And I don't think you've attached the oxygen tanks properly. I'm getting really dizzy. And a little bit high. So I'm just going to put it back on for a little bit longer.
But what truly separates the pilot from all the grunts and machines of the battlefield is the bond between a pilot and a Titan.
Has anyone seen the keys to my Titan? I think I left them in room 74 when I picked up that prostitute.
When linked to a Titan, a pilot can only be stopped by overwhelming force or an equal.
I think she roofied me. Hi everybody, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. 2.5 years after the Microsoft platform exclusive Titanfall, we finally have the highly originally named TitanFall 2. Only this time it's dumping the 360 from the platforms and adding the PlayStation 4. Yes, exclusive titles aren't great for sales, especially if you went all in with the Xbox One. Crystal Dynamics, I'm also looking at you. Anyway, one of the biggest failings of the original Titanfall game was the fact that it tried to incorporate a storyline into the multiplayer, and oh boy, did it not work. Did it not work one single solitary bit. And thankfully they've learnt from this mistake, and this time round Titanfall 2 has its own separate storyline campaign, and it's pretty damn good. Now don't get me wrong, it starts off very generically. You are Jack Cooper, rifleman in the militia with aspirations of becoming a pilot, and then within about 10 minutes you're running around in a Titan. Now, if I was to ask you to write the most cliched way that you can go from a rifleman to a pilot in about 10 minutes, I reckon 90% of you would have got the opening storyline. Suddenly, he's thrust into a war, the Titan and the pilot come down at the last minute to save his life, the pilot dies in the process, rifleman picks up helmet, becomes new pilot. Now, I think I can be forgiven here for thinking to myself, time to switch off my brain because I've got a standard Formula X shooter incoming. And to my great surprise, that's not what happened at all. Now, don't get me wrong, there is plenty of gunplay to be had here, and it's really, really satisfying. It's quick, it's visceral, there's a great variety of weapons, there's caches all over the place allowing you to change, and sometimes you have to do that by hook or by crook, which really fits the ethos of the pilot of having to adapt at a moment's notice. No, this also takes the shooting element and incorporates what was the biggest plus point and separated Titanfall at its release from all the other shooters at that time, and that was the insane maneuverability of the pilot. You are bouncing from wall to wall just as much as you're shooting enemies in the face. You are sliding great distances as much as you're lobbing grenades into packs of them, and you are double jumping just as much as you're meleeing people in their nuts. You see, This is the great way to show why a pilot is complete and utterly different from the troops that it fights against and why it's so feared. Because no matter the odds, it can turn the tide of battle at a moment's notice. And this really fits why you can cut through troops left, right and centre. Now, the storyline does a very good job indeed as well of balancing how much time you spend in and out of your Titan. You never feel as if you're desperate to get in or out because of how your character actually works when you're on your own as a pilot, and the fact that you're bouncing everywhere and shooting everyone in the face, you don't feel vulnerable. Yet when you're inside your Titan, you feel really, really strong and powerful indeed, going up against enemy standard Titans, and then of course the boss fights. Now, depending on what difficulty you do the game on, I completed it on hard mode to start with, and now I've gone to the hardest mode. You really have to think about how you defeat these bosses. If you decide to go toe to toe with them, they are going to eat your face. You really have to box clever, avoid their big abilities, use your cooldowns well, and you will smash through them. Great, satisfying Titan combat as well as the shooting. And it has to have that balance of both of them, otherwise the game would fall apart. So very well done indeed. And then just to compound all this good stuff, the story itself suddenly got really interesting. All the kind of generic stuff was kind of pushed to one side, and then when we got to the real plot of what was going on, it got really cool, and I couldn't put down my pad. I was so invested in what happened next. And it's that investment which left me ultimately really disappointed with the story at the end. 90% of it, 95% of it was really great. But I was waiting for it to shift just another gear forward and shift, and it just wouldn't. It stayed in the same gear. And then right at the end, totally decided to set itself up for sequel bait. And that pissed me off because they latched on to a really cool story and something which could have gone in all manner of directions, not giving anything away here, but they decided to keep you dangling by the hook, and then when you're waiting for that almighty explosive ending, you didn't get it. It says, hey, come back in TitanFall 3 and we might tell you what's going on. Now, a lot of people might be able to forgive this. I personally just felt very disappointed because I don't feel as if this franchise has earned that yet. Titanfall 1, the story was a complete and utter travesty. Titanfall 2 really needed to deliver a knockout blow, and I just feel as if it was all set up and then no payoff at the end, which upsets me a little bit. And since we're decided to stick around the world of a little bit of negativity, I need to talk about the characters of the storyline. It was the story itself which kept me going and not the characters. The bosses I was fighting against, I never felt as if I knew anything about them. I never felt as if I connected to them. The big villain of the piece might as well have just been Joe Bloggs for all I cared. Nothing was really set up about these characters. The game should have done a better job of doing that. But the main relationship of the storyline is, of course, you, Jack Cooper, and BT, your Titan. And I've got to be perfectly honest here, it's BT the Titan that really carries the relationship. A wee bit ironic that the Titan shows more humanity than the human, who comes off as pretty standard and pretty robotic. At various stages during the story, you're actually given some dialogue options with which to reply or not reply. You could just let the time run out and not respond to your Titan. And there's no reason explained as to why this is here, or does it have any effect on the bond between you and your Titan? It just felt very odd at times. I mean, I was quite interested in the way that we're actually communicating with the Titan, but why was it here? How's it helping? Stuff like this just was left dangling and not particularly answered. And this, if you're going to have it in the game, should have been a great way of making you, Jack Cooper, the protagonist, feel a lot more involved, and yet tended, for the most part, to be an outlet for BT, the Titan robot, to come across as the main star of the show. But as mentioned, 95% of it I really enjoyed. Just sad that it couldn't quite deliver the knockout blow that I really thought it deserved, because I think they did deserve it with the way that they set things up. But that is the storyline dealt with. Now let's have a look at the multiplayer, which is pretty much the reason why the vast majority of people will purchase this title. And if that is the reason, then you are not going to be disappointed at all. The multiplayer is absolutely fantastic. It is fun, it is fast, it is frenetic, it is fluid, and the fluidity is such an important word here, because you are running, you are wall running, you are bouncing between walls, you are sliding on your knees across distances, you are double jumping. No matter what you are participating in, it's so seamless. It never feels clunky, it never feels unresponsive. Whatever you do seems to happen, boom, immediately like that. And probably the most important element of any shooter is the hit detection is spot on. Wherever you are aiming, that is where you are going to be hitting. You never feel as if you've been hard done by in a kill, or if you've been killed, you never feel as if it was a complete and utter fudge, which is exactly what you need in a fast-paced shooter like this. There isn't a huge variety in maps. I certainly would have liked to have seen more variety in the maps, and in actual fact, they do feel very similar indeed to the original TitanFall maps as well. I was kind of scratching my head a couple of times thinking, is this actually a remake of the map from Titanfall 1? But with, it's a little bit of a gripe. I enjoyed the maps that I played. I could have just done with a few more. But with that said, EA have come out and said every future map or DLC for Titanfall 2 is going to be free. So at least it's going to expand on what it has right now, and it's not going to cost us a penny when it eventually arrives. But with all the good stuff of the multiplayer, they seem to have done a really bizarre job with the menu system. There's 11 odd modes to play that you can choose from, whether it be pilots versus pilots, 6-on-6 capturing the flag, or capturing bases, or skirmishes where you've got to take out pilots alone with which to get your Titan to come into the battle. And yet, all these game modes are shown off over 2 separate pages, which doesn't make a lot of sense at all, especially with what's probably going to be the most popular choice, the 8 versus 8 various maps on the other page, where a lot of people might not even know it exists. And for that reason, it was a very odd sort of circumstance, because the game also divides you up into data centers as well. Now, it's a great thing for the data centers to be there, because of course you can select the one nearest to you, or you should be there by default, and therefore you have the lowest ping and the best response when you're playing the game. However, you then go to the menu screen and it says 15,000 people are playing this game mode. You go into it. It then uses your data center and it says 110 people are playing this. And then you are seemingly just left there and the game doesn't fill up. And so you have to either reset and start again in an effort to try and get a match, or just go over and try and play a different type. And the amount of times that I've gone into a mode that I want to play, and then it says there are no people who are looking to play this game because of the data center, and yet outside it reckons there are thousands of people playing. It's very frustrating indeed. So it's essentially saying to myself, change your data center, have a worse ping, worse response time, which puts you, of course, at a disadvantage against other players if you want to get a game. Now, I have heard that there are some issues with the EA servers at the moment that may be causing some of these problems. If so, fingers crossed they get it fixed ASAP. But that does put a very frustrating element onto the multiplayer if you just want to go in and out and have a quick, dynamic, very fun game indeed. The multiplayer menu frustration doesn't just stop there either. when you are customizing your pilot, if you have everything set up how you want, the different weapons, the attachments on the weapons, the color of the weapons, and all that good stuff, because the game throws new unlocks at you all the time, if you decide to go off and have an investigation as to the new unlock and you click onto something, if you click back to the class that you originally were, it's forgotten everything. It hasn't intuitively remembered how you had things set up. Your weapons will now be stripped and you have to put the attachments back and the colors back and all that kind of stuff. That kind of got my goat a little bit because that should be kind of standard stuff. But all the menu frustrations aside, the multiplayer itself, the actual fighting itself is awesome. So, with all of these things taken into consideration, I would give Titanfall 2 an 8 out of 10. Multiplayer itself is spot on, that's hindered by some really annoying menu systems, and the story mode is a huge plus point considering the last outing, but falls short at the end because it's desperately trying to set up sequel bait. Ugh. So I think all in all, not too bad. A great foundation with which to hopefully build Titanfall 3. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Links, they're in the description down below. And I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye-bye.